Wow. Man, I'm excited to be back with you, Big Ragoo. Back in here for the Boss and the Sauce Show. This is week 3. How you feeling, buddy?
Hey, I'm back on the grind just like you, my man. So we've been chopping it up all week, getting ready for tonight, and we're gonna mix it up with the chat, give them some NCAA action, and maybe a little bit of sprinkle on NFL if we feel like it. If the chat wants to participate, we'll bring them on in and see what they're all about tonight. So definitely pleasure to be with you each and every week, and we do what we do to bring it home. So let's have fun.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into some capping, Big Ragoo, let's have a little huddle up here. Let's look at the state of the league. Right here, right now is week 3. Seeing a few injuries last week. Seeing a few kick returns, couple punt blocks. Anything? Any advice you got for the people out there? Anything you thinking going into week 3 that you definitely want to account for?
Here's one thing that I like to look at because, early in the season with most of these teams, they're playing out of conference games, and a lot of them are tune up type games. So, in that regard, you have to take a lot of those high scoring games with a grain of salt. So, they're just trying to get their sea legs under them to get ready to, take the conference schedule on. So, like, I think one's coming up this week is Washington State's going to play Houston. Two high scoring offenses and two pretty bad defenses, but I think one defense is a lot worse than the other. We'll get to that later. But the look there is, early games out of conference, you got to take them with a grain of salt. And now this is where the rubber meets the road, week 3. This is where it really starts to get serious for the conference play. So just now that you got a little look at each team, you got a kind of idea how they're going to work, up and down the field a little bit. And then, the nuts and bolts of the games is going to take place this weekend.
Absolutely. I like to refer back to an old Johnny Taylor song when it comes to week 3 right here. He used to have a song said, "It's come a turning point in my life." And he's reached the turning point right here. This is week 3. Anything that you do, whenever you develop in a sample size or whatever, that odd number always gives you a side to choose on, and you start making a decision what side, you got to lean up on. So, situational wise, and I'm about situational capping. Situational wise, you gotta look at the 2 games that the team played because they may have played way out of conference or they may have played a tough game. All those kind of stuff right there has value to it in capping the week 3 game. And what you try, you always try to beat the bookie. So the bookie's going to take the numbers. The bookies are taking the numbers that they're recording right now because bookies are mostly about numbers because that's where they lie. Most of their profit is in working and waiting on the numbers. So bookies are about numbers, and they in the numbers right now. So they're mixing stats with insight and coming up with other stuff. So there's a few points where they may be absolutely off, and I expect those things to happen. And if we don't be careful, we could be absolutely off as well. This is where if they're winning or if they're losing, it's time for them to take a little money from us. So you got to be careful and tiptoe and find the edges that is real that you can measure yourself between the 2 games, not according to the stats, because you can go on YouTube and dig up the game, take a look at it, and see what really went happen in those games. Because a lot of teams may have scored a high total, but they may have scored a lot of points on defense, or they may have run back a kick. And you got to take some of that stuff in consideration when you're wearing out how good is their offense or how good is their defense. So just a little pointers that we wanted to throw out there to our people out there. Let's give a shout out to everybody in the chat right now. My man Comic Ricky's in the house, man. Great guy, Comic Ricky. I love his poetry, Big Ragoo. You like his poem he did out there in Miami?
Oh, yeah, and he had a real nice tweet. If you guys got to follow him, you must. Comic Ricky. He made a nice little comment on the Houston Texans game over the weekend, or this week. He made an open letter to the coach over there. He told him about a play that he should have ran, he shouldn't have. But anyways, you have to see it for yourself. Go check him out at Comic Ricky on Twitter. Great guy. He was fun with us in Miami. I see Donnie Rightside's in the chat with us. Hey, Donnie, what's going on? Anna Marek's in there with us. Wham's in there with us. Virgo 8. and we got let's see, Timmy Tay's in with us. We're going to fill up the chat. Definitely, we're going to take their information
Absolutely.
and take their feedback, and we're going to chop some games up.
Absolutely, man. So, where should we start? In case nobody watched the Pick Six show, I
Yeah.
have a few picks from the Pick Six show. You want to give them a review on the Pick Six? I could go first, Big Ragu.
Yeah, yeah. You started off for us, and then we'll develop and we'll take questions from the chat, and then we'll get on these games one at a time.
Absolutely. So let's go for it. First game up is this Boston College game that's coming up for me. Boston College versus Kansas. Now, after looking at the game for a while, seem to see it a little different. Kind of contrarian play on the full game. I like Kansas, and you can get as high as like almost 22 at some places right now. I think it's a good one. I don't feel that Boston College can just annihilate people by 21. I did a little research, look back and see, what's about the average point range that Boston College wins by. It's definitely below 22. So I'm definitely liking Kansas in the full game. But my money spot for this one and what dragged me over to this game was back in Boston College. So I really like Boston College first half. It's up to 11 and a half. Boston College with the running game over there that they have is great. Should take control of this Kansas team. This is going to be a good test for Kansas all over the field. Boston College not only has a balanced quarterback, a great running game, a decent line, but they have a wide receiver core which includes tight ends, which some teams don't include tight end. And that can get you when your defense is just average and your linebackers are balanced and your DBs are poor like Kansas have. There's going to be a nice test with the pop in the middle to the tight end. And then the running game is going to open the passing game. I think they take off to a good start, but I think they get a little overzealous in the second half, and Kansas comes and puts a few points on the board and cover. But I took Boston College first half minus 11 and a half. You want to give them one, Big Ragu?
So was that a change of heart you had, or is it just kind of something that you, after you look back into it, like you said, you just kind of like the first half better than full game on Kansas?
Yeah, I like Boston College first half
Okay.
minus the 11 and a half. So I was led to the game by Boston College, and I was, I jumped on the first half right away. But when I looked at the full game, and we were on the pick six, and they don't have first halves on there. And when I looked at the full game and looking at the pick six, and I thought about it really well, I don't think Boston College is just going to run away with a trophy like that. So I'm pretty sure that Kansas City's going to cover that large amount. That's to me, that's 4 touchdowns. So that's a lot right there. Boston College, not the team try to beat you down by 4 touchdowns, but definitely a disciplined team that comes out fast and do things well and very disciplined. And the Kansas team, they still making mistakes, missing tackles, blowing assignments. They're not ready for this up in class with Boston College right here.
Yeah, well, Kansas, you got to remember, they've been a dismal program for a while. Les Miles is taking it over, and he's got his work cut out for him. He knows that. But they just been towards the bottom of Power 5 football for a while now. So you can't expect too much out of them this early. Now, one team that's kind of got my attention, and I've got to look into the game, but just the other Kansas team, Kansas State, they bring on Chris Kleiman, North Dakota State coach. He's won 4 out of the last 5 years, FCS championship. And, that's a guy that kind of got a program that was, I'm not going to say handed to him, but when Bill Snyder left, he kind of left some groceries in the closet for him to work with. So, and he's a heck of a coach. So that's a team that I would look into. I haven't looked at that game, but since you brought up Kansas, I figured I'd bring up the other Kansas team just on the look, from a quality perspective. I like what he's doing there, and to be honest with you, like you said, the first couple games, you kind of test the waters with them. Now we'll see what they're going to do in conference. A game that I was looking at that we all touched on, and I think everybody in the country is on this game. We're talking about the UCF game taking on Stanford. Now, some of us that played it early in the week, we're looking at, 6.5, 7. Now I see there's like 8.5s, and pushing 9s pretty soon with this game. I just want to use a little caution here because right now I was supposed to go to the beach this weekend. As a matter of fact, I was going to do our show Saturday from over that way, but I'm probably going to cancel because they're talking about a tropical storm coming up the coast. So not so much as far as the game is concerned with the side, but if you're interested in the total, you might want to take a little caution here because it will be wet. You'll probably have some winds going, and Jimmy asked me, did I have a lean or did that change my mind on the side? I said not necessarily, but it might give Stanford a little edge, even though they've got their left tackle out and they're going with the backup quarterback. That changes the whole pace of the game. We know UCF is a wide open team, and even their starting quarterback is a little banged up, but they're plugging into that system and they've got a ton of athletes, and so doesn't Stanford. But they're in rebuild mode right now. They're down year, and even though the line's kind of creeping up, I still see a little bit of value left in it. Not much, but once you start getting close to double digits, you might want to I'm not going to say shy away, but you're probably going to put you off the game. And a safe bet sometimes is the one that you don't make when you try to get on the ass end of a line. So not that if you get the worst number, but if you don't get caught at the end of the number, if you get somewhere in between, that's still not even a bad look either. So I mean, we had a strong look at UCF early in the week with the number, but that number is starting to creep up now. So we just got to see if anything comes back. But I think it's being hit both ways. I think the sharps are on it and the public's hitting it pretty hard right now. So what you got to take on that game?
Absolutely. I jumped on UCF early in the game too, and got the line when it was really low. But what you think about UCF first half, even with the weather or without? I find Stanford not only in rebuild mode, they were kind of unstable when they started this year. Their faith was in that front line and trying to get the running game going, but they don't have the backs like they used to. They don't got a McCaffrey. They don't got those type of guys back there right now. So their faith was really in the line. And when that tackle went out, I think that really screwed them. But they did come into the USC game, which USC has a huge defensive line, and they did well in the first half. But reason being, like I spoke on the show last week, is because they run the unbalanced set, a double tight, a jumbo package on the front line, which spreads those defensive linemen out. As soon as the halftime came, USC adjusted and came back and killed Stanford. I expect UCF to do the same thing, especially since they're coming outside the conference. They're going to see that jumbo set because I don't think nobody over there by UCF play that jumbo set. Not a lot of people do it like Stanford anyhow.
Yeah.
So I expect them to have to adjust to that. But I think they're a far better team offensively in this matchup right here. And Stanford's defense didn't look great as well. Like they're supposed to have decent cornerbacks, nice linebackers, and okay defensive line. And I didn't see it all together against SC. They got beat deep a few times, missed assignments a few times. So I think early off, rain, sleet, or snow, I think UCF might be a play. Looks like first half is hanging at a -6, which is a fair amount to pay right there.
Yeah, I mean, now if you notice that too with these books with these high power offenses now, like there's another game we'll get into a little bit after this one, but similar look as far as the first half number compared to the full game number, where it used to be, if you're doing simple math, you say, hey, first half should be half of the line, right? If it's a 10-point game, it should be like 6 or 5. They don't do that no more, especially with these college kids, because especially these, these top FBF schools, they know what they're all about. Even though UCF isn't a Power 5 school, excuse me, but they're a high power offense. So the thing is with these guys, they're fast, they run the up tempo, and if you even in a game with weather, I still favor the offense. The only thing I'm not crazy about is the turnover factors, and the slipperiness of the ball and the footing and whatnot. But the offense always has the advantage in the weather situation because they know where the play is going and the defense really doesn't. And if that makes any kind of sense, so they could maybe take a, they could not alter their routes, but their routes might not be as sharp, but they can make adjustments quicker on their side of the ball. So giving there's no takeovers is definitely going to be turnovers is going to be an offensive advantage. So, I mean, 6 points in the first half of full game, I think there's probably more value in the full game because the way I capped the game was I think UCF was going to kind of not wear them down, but later in the game when Stanford starts to get a little bit tired, and the playbook might open up just a little bit more later in the game, UCF is not going to take their foot off the gas because they just go one speed and that's it. So I'm not going to see any value in the first half versus the full game in my book. I just think the value is in the full game.
That's good to know, man. I don't know. I'm already on the full game at the right price, so I don't know if adding anything extra to the first half makes any sense for me. But let me see. Did we shout out to Alec in the chat? Casino Magic, and also my guy Buck Nasty in the chat, and America in there too. Shout out to y'all hanging out with us today, and let's get on to some more stuff. I don't see much questions in the chat that we haven't addressed yet.
I want to know. I got a question for the chat. I want to know what their play today is, and maybe we could, feed off of that too and give some response back. So, you guys in the chat, put your best play forward. Who do you like this weekend coming up, or this, before the weekend? If you like a Friday night game, or you like a Saturday game, or even if you like a Sunday game, we could talk about that too.
Well, while they get those picks ready, let's jump into game we spoke about earlier. This is one of my hard leans right now. I'm probably going to make it a play. I really like that the line is going the opposite way, and I like the under, and that's in the Syracuse and Clemson game. Now, last year was a close game. A couple years before that was a close game. These teams kind of fit each other out well. And what you think about this game, BigRagoo?
Yeah, they took them down the wire both years. If that Clemson, if the Maryland, the team that Maryland beat shows up in Syracuse this weekend, they're in a whole lot of trouble. That's all I know. They just look awful. They didn't execute plays right. They didn't. DeVito didn't look very well at all. I mean, they just had a bunch of missed tackles and just a very sloppy play. They just got outmanned, out pushed around. I don't know what it was. Maybe they were just kind of looking past. I wouldn't say they were looking past Maryland, but maybe they just had Clemson on their mind the whole time. I don't know what it was, to be honest with you. But I mean, if we go by history, I mean, especially the past 2 years, I mean, it should be a ball game if they play up to standard. Now, the look here is, and the word in Vegas is the reason why last week that line went from Maryland, Syracuse is a favorite, to Maryland 2-point favorite, was they're not sold on this kid, Tommy DeVito, the quarterback. They're saying that, he's kind of in over his head a little bit. And, basically that was the big price adjustment was that. So if that goes forward that way, I mean, if you look at this game coming up, there might be a major mismatch with the middle linebackers and trying to pick up that run game. And if they force him to throw the ball, he could be in a whole lot of trouble. But as far as the total goes, what's the number on that total? What'd you say?
I seen it as high as 65.5.
Oh, wow.
It opened at 58, and it's up to 65.5.
So everybody's betting the over, huh?
Yeah, everybody's betting the over.
Yeah. I mean, Clemson, usually when they get in these big games, and I don't know if they might have a little chip on their shoulder too, because they might want to just prove that, all these years that Clemson or Syracuse has held them tight, that, they probably want to make a statement here. So to me, this is going to be a statement game for these guys to kind of separate those question marks that they had hanging over them. Just to what degree, I couldn't tell you, but on the total side, I mean, you might get a little value on the under there because, you might talk about catching the ass end of a number. Everybody's betting that thing up. So there might be some value starting to kick in towards the under here a little bit. A little more breakdown. I got to look at it, to kind of analyze that because I didn't look at the total as a play. But just by looking at the market, the market's definitely on the over, but maybe some of that value is gone there too. And you might maybe look towards the under a little bit. I know normally I won't look at any unders that are like under 50 points in college because it's just too crazy, especially getting these overtime games. And look at last week, with that FSU and UL Monroe game. I mean, it was over anyways, but I mean, if you're sitting on like a 3 or 4 point underneath the margin, and you go to triple overtime, you can kiss that money goodbye. So I'm not a big fan of unders unless like they're up like where they're at now. That's a pretty decent number to look at, depending on the caliber of team that's playing also. So usually these better teams, they'll play a closer game. I think they're both going to be Clemson's going to be a little bit more defensive minded, and this one, like I say, just to try to make a statement with these guys. And then as far as the offensive schemes go, I'm not sure what they're going to bring against this defense here, but I know the Syracuse defense has always been pretty good. Babbers, he runs a pretty tight ship there. I think their trouble is on the offensive side, so we'll see how it shapes up.
Now, I see right here, my man, Common Ricky says, I went to Syracuse. These teams are headed in opposite directions. I'm not betting it, but I think Clemson roll. Now, with that in respect, I also like Clemson first half. And, it's not the most comfortable thing to do as a capper is take one side and take the other total. But I like the way I see the game. I see Clemson comes out, do what they do, score on the first drive down, maybe two. But I noticed with Clemson that they let off the gas a lot. Dabo doesn't have no problem with punting the ball. He's not really he's not saving. He's not after the other team like that. So I see him casually coming to a nice lead in the first half, and then I see going into the second half him letting up off the gas, playing some other guys. They got a cupcake game next week versus Charlotte. You don't want to get nobody hurt. You don't want to do nothing stupid. So they're gonna put their other guys in second half. That'll tone it down. Syracuse is gonna be bleeding so bad at that point that they're just gonna either pack it in or just kind of mellow out. And I think it stays right under it. Maybe 62, 63, but definitely not 65 and a half. I'm taking the under 100%. You got another play for him?
Oh yeah. I brought this one up too last night. I like this one a lot too. Like I talked about the story where Arkansas State were on that team going out west to play UNLV as a small underdog, and they beat them up pretty good. That was a real emotional game. When these kids come off a big emotional game, not to say it's a letdown coming back, but and when these kids they do play those big games, it's tough for them to kind of, when they leave their heart on the field, that's it's like a draining experience. It's just like in any other sport, when they play basketball, same difference. I'm not gonna say letdown spot because now they got to come and play Georgia. You get done beating UNLV, on a big win. Now you got to come back and you got to play one of the top teams in the nation, not just not a tough conference game. You talk about a real tough team here. So, and like you were saying about putting your foot on the gas and taking it off. Now, next week Georgia's got to play Notre Dame, your school, right? So
yes.
all right, so don't get excited yet. Relax. So, anyways, with this game here, though, I'm not going to say it has a different look because of that, but I think what they're going to do is, and Georgia is in the same boat, as Clemson and Alabama, those high top schools. I think what Georgia's going to do, not that they're going to feel sorry for this team, but I think Georgia's going to kind of get this team, get the gears rolling real early here, and really work this team over to a sense where it's a big line though. It's like 33 and a half now. I think it was like 32. I think the first half, I think I played it was like 19 and a half. And the other day it was like 18. So now it's up to 20 I've seen. But the first half in this game, I think Georgia comes out quick. They get, they get mission accomplished early. They get like late in the third quarter. They'll start sitting players down and, getting ready for Notre Dame to try to rest them up a little bit. So not that Arkansas State's a bunch of slouches, because they're not, but they're just outmanned in this regard. So it is a big number to lay for like a halftime, being that, like I say, it's 33 points, and now it's, you're looking at a 20-point half. But, if that's the way I break the game down. I'm looking at them to start quick, get to where they need to be, run their playbook, accomplish their goals, and then late in the third quarter, start to sit a few players down, start bringing some second teamers in, and maybe late in the fourth, bring some third teamers in, and move forward there. So that's my look on that game. I like Georgia minus the 19 and a half, 20 points, whatever it is now, for the first half against Arkansas State.
I like your look right there, 100%. And my guy Dogs Day says Kansas State is a sleeper plus 7.5. And shout out to my guy OG Wham in the chat, Ski Prophet, Josh Point oh, Comic Ricky. We in here doing the do. That's what it is right here on the Boss and the Saw Show. And please, guys, if you don't subscribe to the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe because we're real busy nowadays, and sometimes we don't make it to the last hour before we put the link up to the show. But if you subscribe, you'll get it as soon as we come on the show each and every week right here on the Boss and the Sauce Show, Thursdays nights, 6 p.m. on the West, 9 p.m. on the East. Come join us. We having fun. Let me take us into another game, BigRagoo. But, yeah, absolutely like your look on that other one. And just like we spoke of early in the show, you got to think situational. It's time to and that's one thing I learned. One of the biggest lessons that I learned last year from capping games was that you got to be able to change up your game. You're not going to have – some guys have a computer system or whatever, but whatever you have, the trends of the league change as it goes on. Stuff like you said, teams preparing for the next teams. You got to weigh it all out right in front of you. You can't, hide behind the glass and weigh these out. But definitely like you're looking at. I like the way you kept that down right there. But let's jump over to a West Coast game that I'm interested in. Another hard lean for me. Did a little study in the day on they gave me the Pac-12 network on Sling for free. Shout out to Sling. But so I got a chance to watch a little interview with the quarterback over there, man. I love this guy, Slovis, man. This guy is looks like a natural born leader, and he's a really young kid. Like he's still, peach fuzz everywhere. But he's a really young kid, but he's focused on his game. Being coached by Kurt Warner, you cannot go past that. Kurt Warner was an accomplished quarterback who went to other leagues, came to the NFL. He had a lot of adversity, and when he was dominant, he was definitely dominant in the league for a while over there with St. Louis. So this guy, mentally, when he talks, what he talks about, he's on schedule for that. Now, SC goes to BYU. It's their first road game. They go into no big deal going to BYU. Nothing exciting there. Probably be a more focused USC. They just want to get the hell out of there. So I really like USC in this one. I believe it was -4 last time I seen it. But I think they come out exploding on this one. They have a really good defensive line. The new air system, the new Slovis, he believes in the new system. He said just what I said at the beginning of the season. They're taking California athletes instead of running a pro set, they're running this air raid system to where those athletes are doing the same thing they did in high school. They get to run the system that they're used to. And this is the quarterback. I don't think JT Daniels was the guy for this team. This guy was a quarterback. He knows how to throw the deep ball with good accuracy, right where the balls need to be. And that's probably coming from some of the coaching that he got in high school. And another thing I like about young athletes like yourself, I think I talked about it in the other show, is they pay attention to coaching. When you're young like that, you're watching everything around you. So they're really tuned into the game. And I think he gives it a good try. Now, if he could come out and definitely tell us he's a bum, but I think this kid's got a bright future. I think USC defense alone can give BYU trouble. And when I watch BYU and Utah, it was the first game, but I seen the kind of mistakes that you don't want to see: missed tackles, miscommunications, not lined up where you need to be, late substitutions, and I seen the size differential in the linebacker core too that didn't look good for BYU down the stretch. Class-wise, they're looking at a nice USC team that may player for player out talent them by far. And I think SC rose this one and has a good week. SC goes 3-0. It's just like your boy last year when his job was on the line, right?
Erosia,
Yeah,
the LSU coach.
When he was on when his butt was on the line last year at LSU, his players got behind them. They played well. Here we go, Hellman. Everybody's on them. They didn't got rid of Lynn Swan as the athletic director this week. But they behind the coach. They like the guy. He's catering to their system. He's giving it a last shot. And that's where I want to have my money. I want to have my money on the team that's trying the hardest.
Yeah. You got to have heart to play the game. You got to have heart. You got to be coachable. And without that, that's the foundation for football and all sports for that matter. When a coach gets a kid sitting on the sidelines and he can't wait to get his hands on that ball, the coaches, they eat that up because that's a coachable kid. I mean, if you get the kid that comes in that think he knows everything and, he's the pretty boy, he's this, he's that, even though, his mommy and daddy bought his way into the school or whatever, they're gonna roll out the red carpet in the high school level, that kind of stuff. College, it don't work that way. College, you got to earn your keep. You don't earn your spot, boom, you're gone. So in this instance, with the USC situation, he could very well lose his spot right here, and then guess what? He could be a graduate transfer next year. That's the new free agency in college football. There's all these kids, they're going from one school to the next. But the thing is, they're trying to curtail that a little bit, but they don't really know how to address it because legally they can do it, but I guess whatever bylaws they have in the NCAA for not graduate transfers, that's different. But I'm talking about transfers as a whole. So we've seen a lot of these kids this year. Like you got Bryant's playing for Missouri, right? You got what's his name playing for Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts. You're seeing more and more of that. So and even the kid from what do you call it? LSU Burrows. He was a JUCO guy. And he played high school ball. He played the RPO style offense, and he's got a new OC this year. And talk about being coachable, right? The kid steps right into a role where he knows he's very comfortable running that offense. And now look at LSU this year, man. I mean, they're really knocking on Bama's door. They got everything going for them. They got defense. They got a new look offense that can put the ball up in the air, run, and that's a very dangerous team too. LSU. Who are they playing this week? We might want to look at that game.
I'm not sure, but I had to make a note to that, though, BigRagoo. They're going to be running to California, not from California, because of the new law that they just signed in over here in California to where it's going to be okay to pay the players. So that's been a new topic this week. Yeah, you didn't see that one?
No.
Big topic over here in California right now. Bill been passed for them to pay the players. The NCAA, they're upset about it, and they're talking about not dealing with the California schools because it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair for the NCAA to schedule a game between two teams and one team is getting paid, one team is not. So they're making a big deal about that. But like you said, with the transfer rule in there, hey, greatest athletes are going to go where the money's at. So all those recruits, top recruits, them 5 stars, they're going to load up at USC, Cal. Y'all better get ready for this. This is going to be interesting to see what happens. But I don't know. It's a hot topic to you, BigRagoo. What you think about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been long. I'm not going to say it's long overdue, but they've been talking about it for a while. But I guess the thing is, it's probably a tangled web. I'm not a legalist or, don't get involved with a lot of the know-how, the laws or whatnot. But I'm sure, if it's governed by the schools and, if it goes state by state, see, that makes more of a tangled web because then, this state's going to do one thing and let's say Florida's going to do another, New York's going to do another. So they should just mandate it as a whole, throughout the NCAA, and that'll alleviate all the concerns. But if, like you say, kids are going to be running to the state of California for the scholarships because when the coaches are out there knocking on doors, recruiting the kids, they're going to say, hey, our program, if you come over here, you're going to get per diem. We're going to give you a car allowance, and, that's going to give a whole nother aspect of where these kids want to go play football. So that's probably what do you call it? An ace in their pocket for the state of California schools right now, especially the kids that want to go play some offense, on the offensive side of the ball. So, depending on the recruits.
I don't know, but it's going to be a hot topic for days and days and days and days and days to come. I don't know how they're going to weigh this out, but hopefully they at least give these guys, like you said, a little per diem, a little
Yeah,
R&R
they
here and
deserve that.
there. Yeah,
Because they're making billions off of these kids' backs, and granted they are getting scholarships and whatnot and educations but it's even bigger. It's become such a huge business. I mean, look, if you look at the coaches' salaries that these guys are making, got like Saban making 11 million a year. They
yeah.
a couple of years ago, were making 2 million was a lot of money, and now they're making then five. Now coaches are making some of these college coaches are making more than the pros right now. So.
Yeah, and now if you go to a school like SC or UCLA, the education alone is worth about almost 200,000. The scholarship itself. Now you're gonna add some money to that. I mean, these kids might be up to what 300,000-400,000 as college players, not even in the pros yet. That'll be real interesting to see, man. I
Yeah.
say what they need to do is do like they did back in the old days and let the coaches and the alumni get together and give these guys some jobs where they go stamp papers and make this nice amount of money, for a few weeks and call it a night. Some things are better just left untouched. You mean, we looked the other way for so many years. Now you want to go digging up rocks and all this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So yeah,
Well, the only thing is that I mean, there's been a lot of rumors over the years for a lot of different schools. When I was in, my college years, I didn't hear about them so much as, I got older, but, you always heard stories about, who was getting this, who was getting that, these guys are, that's why they're getting all these athletes because, they're wanting and dining them and they're taking care of their parents, that's a whole nother subject. That's a whole nother subject.
yeah. Well, let's
So,
get into your next pick. You got another pick for him?
yeah, sure do. We're going to run back with this is one I talked about last night too. I'm going to just kind of rehash some of these for those that didn't see it. But now I was talking to Jimmy when he asked about a play I like. I told him I like a double up play here, and we made some money with this team last week. You and I both we crushed it. I think you had the first half and I had the full game. I squoze out the full game, but like we say in the business, a W is a W, right? It doesn't matter how you get there as long as you go to the window with the ticket, they drop it in the machine, they pay you. So it's a winner. So, and I think this week you got another look for this North Carolina team. I tell you what, Sam Howell, this kid Sam Howell, this true freshman, and with the return of the Mac, Mac Brown coming back to Carolina, these kids are really buying into his system in the locker room, and they're doing an excellent job. But the look that this team has given me, though, based on, and I'm not saying they played bad teams because they did play two tough teams. They played South Carolina and they played Miami. So those are not cupcake teams that they went after. So we're not taking nothing away from this team. What they did go out and they win these games. But both of those games, if you go back and watch those games, they were very winnable games for the teams that lost those games because, number one, in the South Carolina game, they basically handed them the game off of turnovers late in the game, and then they didn't come up with a stop late, and then they turned it over late, and then North Carolina went up scoring, and then they picked off the ball late in the game, so they held that one down. And then last week they played the Hurricanes, and Miami, same thing. Miami scored late, took the lead, and then North Carolina answered, came right back down the field. And that kid Howell, man, I'll tell you what, very, very impressive what he's doing with that squad over there. But I think they're kind of playing a little above their head. And I think Teddy mentioned this today because he and I were thinking along the same lines. They're playing a little above their head, a little bit of overachievement here. Now they're going to play a team with a whole different look here. And here we go with the up-tempo offense again. Now, Wake Forest I'm talking about, has always been a very mediocre squad. They're kind of more of an academic school also, kind of like Vandy is. But, they do recruit the athletes. And the coach they have there, he likes to run that up tempo, and they're doing a pretty good job. he's got a losing record at the tenure there, but this past couple of years have been really, really well. Matter of fact, he won. I think he played for the championship, ACC championship. I want to say 2 years ago. I think they were like right there. They had an opportunity to get at the championship game. So their look here is more or less they're one of the top teams in yards per point. Okay, so that's a big handicapping factor, and what that does, it tells you the efficiency of how good that offense is. The lower the number, the better. And it's the opposite of the defense. If you ever go look at yards per point, if you ever go like to a site like Team Rankings, you look at the yard per point, and it tells you how efficient that offense is. Okay, so with this team here, they got not that they're high efficiency as far as the number of plays go, which they are, but they also the production that they get out of those plays. So they can score real fast. So I think a good look for this game here is, even though they're playing in North Carolina, they're playing in Wake Forest. And there's another thing I says, North Carolina's games, they don't go nowhere. They're playing all their games basically in the state of North Carolina, with the exception of two. They play one game in Georgia, and I think they play one in Virginia, and the rest are all in the state of North Carolina, which is nuts. So they really don't do a lot of traveling. I think that was by design, per Mac Brown, even though he just got there this year. But anyways, the line is 3. I like the first half with Wake Forest to cover the 1.5 points, and I like the full game of Wake Forest to cover 3. I think they're just going to keep them off balance a little bit. North Carolina is not going to get as many looks as far as on the defense. They will get plenty of looks on defense, but depending on how the big question mark here is going to be North Carolina's offensive line versus the Wake. Now Wake's offense is kind of mediocre in a sense where it's not a real powerhouse. They got a decent front 4, but their middle linebackers are so, and they got 2 corners that are pretty decent, but they're averaging, I think, on the let me go back and look at their average score, what they've been giving up on score wise. But anyways, their defense is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. But I think they're just going to outscore them based on the number of plays that they're going to get in on offense. They can turn even if they get down, let's say early. It's a quick strike offense. They'll be able to score points. So they're never going to be out of the game. I can't see North Carolina blowing this team out one way or the other. Maybe it does come close to the number. Maybe it goes to score either way. But I'm going to bank on Wake getting out a little quicker than North Carolina out of the gates, and I'm going to bet Wake to get the W at the house, where they, at Wake Forest at home.
I like Wake early. I like what you were saying about that with the 1.5. Maybe even on the money line and like a parlay or something. I like Wake early. Reason being, not only just because of the pace, like you mentioned, but this is going to be the first offense that North Carolina has faced that's like a true offense, because Miami, to me, they got quarterback issues over there. They can't really move the ball how they want to move the ball. And South Carolina on a down year, overall. But also, 2 things that were coming from both of those games is we've seen a lot of fight in North Carolina late in those games. So maybe their magic, if it is a crystal ball Cinderella, and maybe their magic lies in the second half, and not to say a boxer got to take a punch before they start fighting. I think I may join you on that first half, or at least put them on the money line in a parlay or something, little first half parlay or something.
It's a small number. It's only like 1.5, though. I mean, the total. I mean, if this is going to be indicative of the scoring here, that's a pretty high number. If you look at the total, it's 66. So they're thinking somebody's going to score some points in this game. They're thinking it's going to be a slugfest on the offensive side of the ball. So they're basically telling you, that, hey, North Carolina is going to get their share too, because Wake, they're averaging right at about Wake's averaging like 39.5 points a game. And South Carolina, in the 2 games that they played, they were averaging like 26. And then if you flip it around on the defense, Carolina's giving up 22 and Wake's giving up 28. So you got a 27, you're probably looking at about a touchdown game either way. And I think Wake's going to come out on top. They're both 2-0 teams, by the way.
I had already said that somebody had to step down.
I like Wake by a touchdown here. and the more I look at it.
I like that. But like I said, one of those Cinderella teams is going to have to come down between Maryland and North Carolina. And I definitely back Maryland before I back this North Carolina team. But in North Carolina's defense, that last play that they played to go ahead in that game, the go ahead touchdown, that was an excellent throw by the quarterback. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it was back shoulder, corner of the back of the end zone where only his guy could get it, and it dropped in there perfectly. So I don't know. We could be after this game. We'll know. This is the third one that's going to decide if this real or not.
I wouldn't have thought. Usually with these first year coaches, a little different because Fedora, the coach that left, he didn't leave the cupboards bare. I mean, he just kind of was. It was more the coaching than it was the players in his regard. So, not saying that Carolina recruited the best players, but I guess Mac got the most out of his kids early. It looks like so far. They got the don't quit attitude. That's always a good quality in teams. Teams that win from behind and win late. Going forward. Like later in the year when they get in the tougher games, the bowl games and stuff, it'll show up then too. So, not taking nothing away from Carolina. I'm just saying I think they might be playing just a little bit over their heads right now, and then might come back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I like that look, and I gotta before we got a little 15 minutes left in the show. I gotta give up some Mountain West where I do it the best.
Yeah.
And this was another one that came from the show on Wednesday. That's Colorado State at Arkansas. Now we broke it down early in the season about this Arkansas team right in the bottom of the conference. This is an out of conference game for them, but the Mountain West has been doing well out of conference, and they're right next to my magic number. Ironically, it's almost to the 11, but it's plus 10 right here. And the thing about Colorado State that I really like is Colin Hill, the quarterback. Now, this guy was handpicked by Mike Bobo, and Ian talked about that as well on the show earlier today. And the guy is really good, and they, it's a team, West Coast team. They can move the ball around real good. Got good wide receivers. When you got a great quarterback behind these offenses, when you look at Washington State, whenever you get a quarterback behind these West Coast offenses right here, it equals points on the board. And this Arkansas team is going to be the first time that they're facing a team with this type of caliber offense. And I don't see either one of them having good defense. But if Arkansas can score X amount of points, Arkansas can score the same, if not more. There's another instance right here where I don't take this underdog unless I feel this underdog has an absolute chance at winning outright. So give me the 10 points with Colorado State.
Wow, that's a good look there. So Mike Bobo, he's a former Georgia quarterback. That's where he got his roots and started in football. Then he became assistant, and he took that program. He's done pretty good for a young coach over there at Colorado State. That Colorado State program has put out a lot of good coaches back into other areas. So yeah, they need to hold on to him. He's going to be a good one long term.
Yep, and that's not to mention that Colorado State actually beat them last year, 34-27.
Yeah.
And Colorado's getting ready to go in the conference play over in the Mountain West. Conference play is where it's at. That's when all these teams you thought was doing this and was that. It all changes around in the conference. So out of conference right here, this is the last time for them to put up an impression or straight goal. So Colorado State, even though these teams, you can't say that they always travel well, but a nothing state like Colorado going over to a nothing state like Arkansas, ain't nobody gonna lose no rest. I see we in a nice game right here, and I'm gonna back Colorado State 100% on this one.
Yeah.
And check into the closing line on Saturday. I might drop this as my money line surpriser. I don't know. Y'all stay tuned.
Yeah, if it gets 11, you better do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Here's a game I'm looking at too. Pittsburgh and Penn State. Now, Pittsburgh, we know ACC. They were like one of the darling teams last year to make a run at their side of the division for the conference. To get to the conference championship. A lot of people are kind of down on them this year, and Penn State, they like to run up the score. Franklin, they played a couple cupcakes early in the season, like Pittsburgh. They come off for 2 games. I think the last game there was like 70. What was it? 77 to the hell was that score? Let me look it up here. Anyways, Pittsburgh, they scored a bunch of points. They played. Let's see. Okay, they played Idaho 79-7, right? 47.5 point favorite. They covered that. No big deal there. And they played Buffalo the week before that. So Buffalo last year was a really good team, and that's a team that basically fell off the map because they lost a ton of talent to the NFL. And then they just emptied the cupboards there. They have nothing going right now. And I think the coach is gone too, from what I understood. So Buffalo's having a real bad year this year. And then Idaho, not much to be said there. I mean, they gave up like 331 yards rushing to Penn State. So they just walked all over them on the field, more or less. So, and then now they got to come back and play Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh, their look early in the season, they took on Virginia, which the Virginia I know Wham likes Virginia, and I like Virginia. And I think they're going to have a good shot at possibly getting up at the top part of that conference to get there to the championship game. And then they played Ohio U. Now, Ohio U, when Pittsburgh played Ohio U, that was a W for them. They won 20-10. So Ohio U's got a pretty good offense. Frank Zolich, that's probably one of the top scoring offenses in the MAC over there. And they held them to like 10 points. So the 20-10 was the win there. Not a very pretty game as far as, scoring goes, but looks like their defense kind of held things in check, and the offense maybe not so much. But then when they played the Virginia team, they lost 14-30, so they gave up 30 to Virginia, but they only scored 14. So right now, you got a real small sample size of them scoring, let's say an average 17 points between the two games. Now they got to go play Penn State. Now, if you look at the total's 51 points. And Penn State in this game, I think they're favored 17.5. It's 52. So 17.5 and 52. So basically they're telling you that Penn State's going to score at least 35 points, maybe 5 touchdowns, 35, 38 points, and maybe the other team's going to score, 17, 20 points, okay? So two things could happen here. If you like Penn State, you got to be on the over without question, just because of the way they like to run the ball, run the score up, whatnot. But Pittsburgh, on the other hand, if they can hold Penn State down, just a little bit, not give up, all the big plays that they yielded against some cupcake schools. If you like the under, it's going to correlate to Pittsburgh. And I'm not a big fan, like I said, I'm not a big fan of totals, under 50 points. But in this game here, I just got a funny feeling that Pittsburgh's going to hang around with this team. I don't think a lot of people are against me. They're saying, no, Penn State's going to walk all over them. They're going to kill them. I mean, if you go back and look at Idaho and the other shitty team that they played, I mean, it's really no big deal, what they did to those teams, because that's not even going to matter in about a week or two, once they get into the conference play. But in this particular game, don't forget, like when you get into these in-state rivals, and this is basically what this game is an in-state rival, because all these kids, they played throughout the state up in the Pennsylvania area. Some of these kids, they probably played high school against each other. So when you get these type of games, they're usually a tighter type of game. They're not usually a big blowout game. So I think Pittsburgh could probably play up with this team. It doesn't look like it on paper, as just if you just did the stats. But I think just not that it's a rival game, but it's kind of like it is a rival game. I like Pittsburgh to keep it less than 3 scores here. Maybe they get away with like a 12 or 14 point loss versus the 17.5, maybe 18 by game time. So that's another game I like. I like Pittsburgh getting this 17.5 points.
Yeah, turn in tempo for Penn State, because they just been absolutely trying to annihilate teams. And I don't know. I think Penn State they got a chip on their shoulder. It's funny though. One of the reasons I love you, Big Ragoo, is because games that I absolutely, and sometimes we have the same thing because you don't like the Pac-12 games. Well, not that you don't like them, but you don't really play them. But some of those games, when you say those two teams, I don't have a clue. I follow, but it's just one of those ones that I don't really feel. And you do a great job of breaking it down to me, helping me understand how things go on that side of the map. But I
Same
like
with
that.
you with the Mountain West and what you got going on out there. So that's why when we sit here and we talk about these games and we get people in the chat involved, it opens when you start capping the cappers, like Jim likes to say, you start capping the cappers, it opens your mind up to kind of encompass different things. So that's how we learn and we grow from that. But at the same time, we try to stay within our comfort zones. And not to say, because don't forget, there's over 130 FBF schools and a ton of FCF schools. It's hard to reach out and just look at a odds board and say, I like this one, I like this one. Something's got to, like you say, jump off the page at you when you first look at it. Then if you start looking into certain things, that's what happened with me with that Arkansas State game. I was like, why is UNLV only 1.5 point favorite against Arkansas State? When you start looking at it, you start reading, you start handicapping. You say, oh wow, look at this, and then certain things play in, and then boom, you catch a winner. So certain things open your eyes, and then certain things just pass you up without even picking up on them. You know what I mean? It's like Teddy said today. We all have lives. We're all doing things, and sometimes we miss games that we should have played, and sometimes we play games we shouldn't have played. So it just works out that way when you cap games. So, but the main thing is to have fun with it and just have a good time and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, but I always like to give what we call in the streets. I like to give your propers where you get your propers. You know what I'm saying? I got to give you your propers, man. And I love this group that we run with. It's absolute pleasure to run with everybody in the chat, as well as yourself and many of the other cappers that we run with. Shout out to Jimmy and all of them. But let's give a rundown again. The Nut Flush Allen family is in the house. Shout out to the Nut Flush Allen family. All y'all over there, y'all know who y'all are. It's a whole family of them, man. We appreciate their support. And also, our guy Ski Prophet, he always pulls up. Now, Ski is not too keen on college football, but he says he's going with Texas this year. That's going to be his team. He said that during the game last week. And A. Hilly's in the house. Shout out to him. My man, Comic Ricky, been in here from the beginning to the end with us. Shout out to Comic Ricky, man. Great guy.
And Joe.
A. Hilly. And,
Joannick.
Joey work. Gary. I'm missing
Gary
White. We got Gary White in here with us. We got my man Joe Annick in here. Shout out to him. And I'd like to give a special shout out to my guy MPS Skinner for pulling up. That's one of my personal friends right there. And he's a capper. We're going to get him on the right page, on the right side, and he's going to be rolling with us soon. So y'all get ready to hear from my guy MPS Skinner. Remember that. And we also talking about, we had some questions in the chat. One of them was, what do I think about the over in the Colorado State Arkansas game? I absolutely like the over. It opened at, I think, 59, and it's all the way up to 64 now. So I think I might have missed my time to jump on that ship. But both teams over there, great defense, and I think that it's definitely a possibility that they go over. It could be a high-scoring, close game, and that's how I'm going to cover that 10 or even get that money line win. But MP Skinner, he also asks, what about the total in the Pitt and Penn State game? You got an action on the total?
Well, that's what I just talked about that, okay? So depending on who you like is how you got to bet the total. So if you like Pittsburgh, you bet the under. If you like Penn State, you bet the over. So me, I like Pittsburgh. I'm not going to bet the under, but I'm going to like Pittsburgh for the side. But me personally, I would lean towards the under because I like Pittsburgh. That's just my view on the game. So that's Absolutely. The answer, MPS. Hey, and there's another question here about the Washington State game that's going tomorrow night, I believe, right? So have you looked at that game at all?
It was I tried to find more than one way to jump on the game,
Yeah.
and that game to me
He's
is
asking about
just
the total.
the total in that
Yeah.
game. Let me see what it's at.
It's
Now, no,
74.
okay, so I would go under. I'm gonna tell you why. I always say two teams that do the same thing, and unless you know it's already going to be a close game because they opened the line at 6, even though it's up at 10 now, they open at 6. Now, two teams that pretty much do the same thing. Both of those try to be more offense than defense. They have a lot of similarities if you break those two teams down. Usually, that means that the guys over at Washington State, when they play the defense in practice, they kind of playing against a defense that's the same like Houston. I don't see no big jump between the two, and vice versa for Houston. You know, when they line up against their defense, scored similar to Washington. So the speed factor between the two teams becomes a double negative, which makes this look more for the under. But when the total goes that high to 73, 74, you got to beware. You're not going to get that under easily. There's definitely going to be some points scored in that game. So I would lean over in that game. I mean, I would lean under. I'm sorry. I would lean under in that game.
You lean under? Okay. All right. So here you got Houston. We'll start off with Houston first. Houston played Oklahoma last week. They lost 31-49. So they put 31 up against Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's defense was like one of the worst last year, believe it or not, in FBS. They were horrible. Now we watched them early in the season and we said, hey, Oklahoma's defense didn't look real bad. Played that early game, right? And then they turned around and then they looked like they shit the bed late in the second half and they didn't make the adjustments, for that. So Oklahoma's defense is still pretty bad regardless. But they gave up against Houston. Like I say, they scored 31 points and they had 42 rushes for 241 yards. That's a lot of running in a game like that because maybe they were just trying to control the clock to kind of keep Houston off the or Oklahoma off the field. You know what I mean? Because Oklahoma is a quick strike. Now Washington State, I got to put them in the same category. With Mike Leach and the air raid system. And this coach here, Hogerson. He's coached at the lower college level, and he was Leach's assistant for a long time. So these guys are basically like blood brothers. They know each other inside and out. So who would you say would have the advantage here? Would it be Leach or would it be Hogerson? And what it's going to come down to is execution as far as talent goes. Now, I know Leach, had Minshew last year, who's now playing for Jacksonville. And it just seems like whatever he's been up at that college for a while, he kind of revamped that whole program. He took a program that was basically nothing and made them a top 25 team, year in, year out. They're always on the outside edge looking in, but they score a lot of points. They play in the Pac-12. Defensively speaking, they're not the best look in the world, but they get on the field, they compete. So if you got to answer the question on the total, you got two coaches that like to do the same thing, like you say. One's probably going to be the student, one's going to be the mentor, and I'm going to give the edge to Leach as far as that goes, and that shows in the spread because we're opened up at 6 and went to 10. So I think Houston is definitely banged up on the defensive side of the ball. They're depleted. They have nothing. I mean, Prairie View. They played Prairie View the week before Oklahoma. Oh, I'm sorry, they played Prairie View last week, and they yielded 236 yards rushing and almost 260 yards passing. So basically, that's over 500 and some odd yards of offense to Prairie View. Okay, so you can imagine what Washington State's going to do to them. So and both of those games went under. The Oklahoma game was 80.5, and the Prairie View game was 77.5, and they both went under. Now, if we look at Washington State's first two games, they played New Mexico State and they played North Colorado. Those two teams are not setting the world on fire either, right? So, those are definitely out of conference games, and they scored 58 and 59 in those games. So I'm not going to say that Houston's defense is much better or much worse than those two teams because I'm sure that just on talent alone they have to be a little bit better, I would imagine. But I mean, if you throw 58 points and the other team could score 20-something points, that's an over in my book. So am I going to say that's what's going to happen? I'm sure they're going to at least score 7 touchdowns. This team here, and the monkey's going to be on the back of Houston to put the game over. So that's where the look's going to be. So if Houston decides that they want to score 30 points or 28 points, and this team scores, 42 or 49 points, then you have yourself an over. So it's going to boil down to that. Maybe you look at a first half over. I would say possibly, maybe I don't know what the number is there, but for a guy in the chat that want to know about the total, that's the breakdown. They gave up Washington State. They scored, like I say, 58-57, and they had 507 yards passing in the first game, and they had 481. So you have 500 yards of passing out of this team. So you know which way they're going the whole time. That's all they're going to do is throw the ball. They ran the ball for let's see, they ran 20 times for 111 yards, and they ran 15 times for 113 yards. So you got 600 yards of offense both games there. And like I said, you got Houston giving up, close to 500, 400 something yards to two shitty schools. You got a powerhouse like Washington State coming in. Maybe they split the difference there, but still, it's going to show up on the score. But I'm going to say maybe a good team total over. I would look in maybe team total over on Washington State. Maybe that might be a good look. Take a team total. If it's over like 42 or 47 or 49, take a shot with that. You need 7 touchdowns to cover that. So I hope I helped you out with that one.
Well, there it is there. Now, I'm going to give a quick review of my picks so we can lock these in for the week right here on the Boss and the Sauce Show. I appreciate everybody for hanging out with us. I got Boston College first half, minus 11.5. I got the Colorado State plus the 10 points. I like the under in the Syracuse-Clemson game. SC minus the points. And also it's leaning towards first half in the UCF-Stanford game. But I'm going to leave that game alone because I'm already on UCF. How about yourself, BigRagoo?
Yeah, I'll recap. I'll just look at my sheet here. So I'm already locked into UCF minus 7 early in the week. So, but I know you can't get that now. So I'm not even going to use that. But Wake Forest first half and full game, minus 1.5 and minus 3. Georgia first half minus 20. Pittsburgh plus 17.5. Those are my 3 looks.
There it is there. You heard it right here first on the Boss of the Sauce Show, which we tune in each and every Thursday, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. BigRagoo, I must say it's been another pleasure, man. We had a wonderful time. We had some great topics in this conversation we had. And all 9,000 people have clicked the like button, and we're just booming over here at the Boss and the Sauce. So make sure you tell a friend. Yeah. Any last words, BigRagoo?
Yeah, what I want to do too is tell these guys that are, we appreciate you coming in, giving us a like, and give us a follow on our Twitter at DJ BigBoss, double G, double S, and BigRagoo, RAGOO 62. And when we put the links out, for the show, how about retweeting? And what we'll do? We'll start giving out, maybe we get X amount of retweets. Whoever has the most retweets or likes on their tweet, we'll give them a hat and a shirt.
That's right. I got a shirt. As a matter of fact, I got a shirt right now that's ready for giveaway. So once we get all that squared away, definitely tune in to us tomorrow. Don't forget to tune into it tomorrow, because tomorrow we have the Who-Bangin Sports Lounge live, and I haven't even tied in everybody that's going to be there. My man Don Ricci wants to come in for a second live from the Mets game, and we definitely got Noli Nose lined up to be with us. Me, BigRagoo, OG Wham, maybe Ski Profit go by. What's up with Sergio? Sergio joining us tomorrow?
I didn't hear back from him, but I do have a friend of mine that lives out in your neck of the woods out in L.A. His name is Greg EV plus EV. That's his Twitter handle. He's a pretty sharp kid. I've been talking to him for about a half a year now, and I invited him on tomorrow night. He said whatever he's got to do. So I said, it's very easy. Don't worry about it. I'll show you what to do. So we might have him pop in with us tomorrow night. That's the good thing about the Who-Bangin Talk Lounge is every Friday night we're here. People in the chat, they want to get involved. They want to come on with us, come on air with us. We'll have fun just like we're doing now, but we'll take your stuff. Me and DJ will have a drink in our hand. Hopefully you have a drink in your hand. And it's about, just kind of collaborating and getting to know one another and, reaching out and having a good time and talking, chopping up these games. And don't forget Saturday at 11 o'clock on the SBR network, the closing line is DJ BigBoss, myself, Drew Martin, Ian Cameron. That is a strictly college football show. We're going to, for an hour, right before kickoff, we're going to give you all our good looks. And those will be solid plays, just like these plays are right here. But we'll have Drew Martin and Ian Cameron joining us.
Absolutely, man. And also to all my folks in the chat, Joannick, Josh, Comic Ricky, hit me up in my DM on Twitter, man. We get y'all on the lounge for sure. We'd love to have you guys on there to come hang out with us, man. But we're going to put a bow on this bad boy. And guess what, BigRagoo?
I'll see you at the window.
And I'll see you at the window. Y'all have a great night. Come back and see us on Friday. Make sure you come back and see us next Thursday. Same time, same place. And we out.
Good night.